All right. Good morning, everybody. I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Marla. I have been coming to Erace for about, I guess, a little over a year. And this is my first time facilitating, so please be patient while we clunk through. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. So I will read the land acknowledgement next. We acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the lands of the Tonkawan, Lapon, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, and the Cahuilla and Mojave in Riverside County, California. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through generations, and we state our intention to continue that stewardship now and into the future. So I will go ahead and start by having everybody just briefly introduce themselves, and I'll call out your name as I see you on the screen, and hopefully I won't forget anybody. Phyllis.
Good morning, I'm Phyllis. I've been coming to Erace since 2008. I'm in New Orleans, and I'm going to be assisting Marla today, keeping her time and other things that she might need.
Thank you. Okay, Beatrice.
I am Beatrice in East Point, been coming to East Point, Georgia, coming to Erace since 1993 when I was at home in New Orleans. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Marvel.
Good morning. My name is Marva. I've been coming to Erace post Katrina, and I look forward to every Saturday discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle, coming to you from Austin, Texas. I've been coming to Erace almost 2 years now, and thank you, Marla, so much for stepping up to facilitate. All of us facilitators really appreciate it, and thanks to Phyllis for helping her out too. So good luck.
Thank you. Thanks. Jean.
I always have trouble finding them unmute. And Jean Walker from Silver Spring, Maryland, and I've been coming to Erace New Orleans, I guess about 9 months now. And I look forward to our discussion. Good morning to everyone. Thank you.
Morning.
Lynn.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Frank in New Orleans. I started coming in person to meetings in 2019 and have been doing Zoom since that time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Stanton.
Good morning, Stanton from Austin, Texas. Been coming for several months now, about 4. I just keep adding on months. Anyway, look forward to today's topic. Thanks.
Thank you. Marion.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Marion here in New Orleans in the Gentilly area. I've been attending the Erace discussions since 1993, and I'm looking forward to this morning's discussion. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Pedro. Pedro.
Oh,
Sorry.
Hey, sorry about that.
Quiet. No, I was probably kind of quiet.
Just wanted to give you your first challenge of your new.
If this is the biggest challenge, then I'm good. I'm sorry.
Anyhow, yeah, thanks for being the person today or whatever. Yeah, I'm in Austin. I joined about the same time Michelle did. I think we're just starting our third year. And really, it's really been a great cognitive development type of experience and stuff. So I really appreciate everybody's input. Look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee?
Hi, good morning. I'm Dee Dee and I'm in California. I'm in Riverside County and it's only 66 degrees here, which is wonderful. It's gonna get to 93 though, okay? But I'm kind of enjoying the cool weather right now and looking forward to this discussion and to widen my brain some. So welcome to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes, good morning. I'm Larry, and I started with the racism back around 1995, and off and on, out of town, back in town, reconnected. So, good morning. Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you. Greer?
My name is Greer, and I've been coming to Erace since 2008, 2009, post Katrina. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl? Cheryl? Cheryl, can you hear us? I'm not sure if she can hear.
I'll put something in the chat.
Okay. Leonetta?
Good morning. My name is Lynetta. I've been a member since I was an undergraduate doing my internship with Erace. And my update to everybody is my dad's doing good and I'm mending.
Thank you. Glenn?
This is Glenn Abdullah. I've been a member since 1994. Looking forward to this meeting this morning.
Thank you.
Cheryl says she can hear now. Cheryl, you can introduce yourself.
I'm going to work with this. I don't know what's happening. I don't have very loud sound to hear you, but good morning, everyone here in New Orleans, Valancha, and very happy to be with all of you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was everybody. I'll just briefly review the rules for everybody. I think everyone already knows, but I'll be keeping a list and people can go in the order that they're called from the list. If you'd like to go on the list, please just raise one finger and kind of move it around so I can see and add you to the list. When I call on you, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And just make sure as a reminder to be respectful, no comments to others, no personal attacks, no name calling. We're all trying to listen, learn, and not argue. And then if someone is speaking and when they're finished speaking, you have a question, that would be a clarifying question. You would raise 2 fingers to let me know that you have a clarifying question. And the clarifying question is specifically just that, it's clarifying. I didn't understand what you meant by word, phrase, term. Could you please clarify what you meant when you said? The questions aren't meant to further your opinion and they don't require a long monologue. We'll let you know, or I or Phyllis will let you know if the clarifying question is not appropriate. Only 2 people may ask a clarifying question for each speaker. So those are the primary rules. I think the next thing is that I sort of let you all know why I chose this article and this topic. The reason I chose the topic, first off, is somewhat personal. I have become more involved over the last, I guess it's been about a year or so, in learning about mutual aid and what that means, that it's charity. I mean, that it's not charity, that it's more solidarity than anything else, and community. And through that community on Instagram, I have met a Black trans non-binary person who happens to live in Phyllis's home state. And they have 3 children of their own and are raising them single-handedly. And they have lived in crisis, literal crisis, over the last couple years specifically, but essentially, you know, for a lifetime too. The violence that this person has experienced, you know, both physically and emotionally, has been tremendous. And I think that this is just something that really needs to be highlighted, not the violence, but I would also say the joy that folks in the transgender community have, specifically the Black trans community. And so this is a part of my personal effort to kind of elevate those voices, elevate that community, and hopefully open the conversation just to kind of see what happens, you know, in an effort for us to build a better community, in recognizing these folks and their phenomenal contributions to our world, to our country, and to Black liberation as a whole. So those are the reasons why I chose the topic. I'm really excited just to discuss it, and to not only, you know, discuss the hard parts, but also to kind of concentrate on the joy and the beauty that folks in this community bring to us too, and the joy that they have. So with that, I think we're ready to open the floor for discussion, and I can start writing people down on the list, and we'll just hope for the best that I don't forget anybody. Okay, who would like to be on the list? Okay, B. Michelle. All right.
Do you see that Greer raised a hand?
I did. Greer is on the list. Okay, anybody else right now? Okay. B, go ahead.
Just want to say how fortunate I feel we are to have a vocabulary to understand the different ways that people see themselves or identify themselves, that we, you know, we who have grown up thinking in binary terms, male, female, that to have a vocabulary so that people can speak their truth and we can recognize who people are and that they can live as they are, is very helpful. I'm also concerned with all that has happened with the Don't Say Gay, the kinds of laws that have been against children in terms of their participating in sports based on non-scientific information, and when it is so that so many, that suicide is a big issue for transgender children. So just basically, I'm just glad that we live at a point where we can learn a vocabulary, as I said at the beginning, that helps us understand that everybody, that being binary, being cisgender is not all that there is in this world, and that there are people who have a right to look in the mirror and see who you are, no matter who I might say you should be or what pronouns I think you should use. I'm just glad for that kind of freedom, and I want to celebrate. And I'm glad there's such a thing as gender euphoria rather than gender dystopia, which troubles so many people. And finally, that there are treatments that can help people move through to be who they are.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Beatrice just said. So, but I just wanted to say also I was grateful for the article pointing out that the history behind transgendered people. I hadn't ever really thought of that until this article you pointed out for us to read. So that's interesting to me because, of course, everybody has a history, and that's just one of those histories that we're not taught to see here in our binary world. And so, yeah, being pointed out that everything has been taught from a binary perspective in my world so far, it is kind of just eye-opening and revelatory to see that, yeah, there's history there, thousands of years of history, it sounds like, that I hadn't even considered until this article kind of pointed that out to me. And also, since you mentioned mutual aid, Marla, as well, that's also a concept and something that I have just recently become aware of myself in the past year and a half. During the pandemic is when it was kind of pointed out to me. I kind of came across it on Facebook or something, and come to find out there's several mutual aid organizations here in Austin, so that I was looking at. So yeah, that's a very interesting concept that I'd like to learn more about and also get involved with if I could. So that's about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Greer?
Okay. I just want to say this. This is nothing new. And I'm not just saying on a transgender spectrum of the conversation, but if you think about people of color's existence in this country since stolen, the American Indian who are already here and the Native Africans who are already here. There's always been agendas against people of color based on sex. Think about the pipeline from school to prison. That's a male agenda. We have all these women missing and nobody's looking at them. I mean, looking for them. Women and children are missing that nobody's looking for. We have disparity in healthcare for women and men. We don't get the same treatment as white counterparts. This is really nothing new, because I'm going to say this. In this country, our first fight has always been a Black fight, which has broken down into divisions of agendas based on sex. So if you're transgender, all you are is a part of a subset of a marginalized community and are being more marginalized because of what you feel about your gender. So what's going on right now is not new. It's been a war raged against when we were considered just men and women at one point. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Lynetta, and then the list is open after that. Larry? Dee?
Yes, just tell me when it's time for me to shut up and then I'll get back on the list again. I just want to share with everybody some of my experiences as being a Black social worker and being a Black woman in the community. This subject is very hot in several organizations that I belong to. My sorority, Zeta Phi Beta sorority, is we are in meeting right now. And on the agenda, it was the last convention we had, was about bringing trans women into the sorority, and it got so heated. Generational wise, they had to table it. So when they get back, I'm going to find out what was done with that. I belong to the Elks, and we changed our constitution to state that if you were born a woman, you belong to one part of the Elks. If you were born a man, you belong to another part, and that's it. They've changed it. So this is a topic that is very hot and emotional in the Black community. And I would like to share with y'all about a client that I had that was trans Black, that was raped, and the things that was shared with me in some of the conversations that we had. She into gay community, she says it's very it's racist and it's dangerous. If they when they deal with their sex partners, either white or Black, and that is very dangerous for them. And I don't know if everybody knows, but here in New Orleans, they're being murdered here. at a very high rate. Well, all over the United States, but here, proportionate to the numbers in the society, is very bad. It's very dangerous to be a Black trans in New Orleans because you can get murdered. Not only raped and beat up, but murdered.
That was the time.
Thank you.
Lynetta, would you like to get back on the list?
I think I said enough.
Okay. Larry?
Yes, you know, the title of the article stated that a point where gender discrimination and racism intersect. You know, there's no doubt that America is going through a moral revolution. For better or for worse, it's happening. Transgender people intersect with a whole set of things. And I believe that gender itself is the main thing. Is humanity itself binary? If so, what determines it? The answer would be obviously male and female. Is cisgender the standard? Or biologically, is there transgender? Should a person who was born male and participated in athletics as a male all his life, regardless of his feelings trapped inside of a body, but later he decides to go through surgery and become in his own eyes a female, is it fair that such a person now be able to compete with girls in athletic competition? What about restroom use? Does transgender persons use the restroom according to how they feel at the time? For a long time in the racism meetings, there have been attempts made to tie the whole homosexual and gay issue into the historic issue of racism that we've always fought in America. And I, for one, can't make that connection. And whatever gender a person may choose to operate under, he, she, they have the rights to be treated as a human being. But I don't think not with any special allowances and laws to the historical issue of racial discrimination from a traditional Black-white perspective.
I think that was,
So-
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Larry, would you like to get back on the list?
I'll wait.
Okay. Next we have D, and then after D is Phyllis, and then the list is open. Okay, D. Oh, Marion. Okay. Go ahead, D.
When I got the notice of what the topic was today, and I got it on Thursday, and I got really excited because this is relatively close to my sermon topic that I'm preaching tomorrow. And so I had looked up a ton of information already. My youngest daughter, who's 45, she's gay. She's not trans, but she and I wrote the sermon together. And a lot of things that she said to me to give me information to move forward was things I was hearing from the first time from her. And there was a lot of tears, and she lives in a different county than I did, so we did it on the phone and through the computer, but there was a lot of eye-opening information. And during the sermon tomorrow, she's going to tell her story, which is unusual because it's very, very positive. But she saw, after she came out, she met a lot of people whose coming out story wasn't positive. It was pretty ugly. And the sermon really is about what she did to help her friends do better and feel better about who they are. And then I basically backed her up from a spiritual angle. But a couple of statistics that I ran into from the Trevor Project, which I don't know if any of you know about that, but yeah, you do. Yeah, they do extensive polling in the gay and trans LGBTQ community of youth. And they have some pretty frightening statistics about suicide and the suicide rates in the teenage years between 13 and 24. I'm gonna do I need to get back on the list?
Would you like to get back on? I think that was time.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'll put you back on, Dee.
Okay.
Phyllis is next, and then after Phyllis, we have Marion, Greer, and Dee. And Larry. Okay. Phyllis, go ahead.
Thank you. So I think the issues of like sports and bathrooms is not where this conversation should be focused. I really think this is a population of people who need protection, need support, need compassion, empathy, all the things that we want to give anybody who's being oppressed, because they certainly are. I don't know if anybody watched the 2 videos that were embedded in the article. I did. The second one was very hard to see that person being beaten so viciously. And until a group of, it was a Black trans woman, until a group of women stepped in, other Black women, but not trans, to pull her away from the man who was beating her viciously and other men who were helping. There is a lot of sexism in how people respond to trans women, especially because there's something threatening to unenlightened cis men about a man who chooses to be a woman. And I say chooses not in that way that is often used, but I mean choosing to be their true selves. And that's scary. It's a scary life to live, and there's a lot of hardships. I just think like there's no way I can start wanting to be involved in anti-racism without bringing in every group of Black people who is affected by racism, whether it's cis women, trans women, gay men, trans men. It's all connected to me. And that is my time. So can I get back on the list?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Marion, and then after Marion is Greer, Dee, Larry, Phyllis. Anybody else right now? Okay, go ahead, Greer. Or I'm sorry, go ahead, Marion.
Many years ago, when I taught 3rd grade, one of my students was a little boy. He was 8 years old. His name was, I'm giving you a fictitious name. His name was Claude. I recognized the little boy. I thought he was the brother of a little girl who was in the 1st grade 2 years previously. The principal came to me and took me aside in private conversation and told me that the little boy that I thought was the brother to the sister that I recognized from 1st grade was actually the same person. When I first saw the child, he was wearing dresses. He had little pigtails and ribbons. The grandfather came and talked to me and took me on the side in private and told me that his mother had viciously abused him because the child was born with 2 sex organs. So he had to go to court and get custody of the child, and the child had surgery. So this is why when the child got to me in the 3rd grade, he was wearing pants, a school uniform, that they wore the pants and the skirts. The little girls wore the skirts, and the boys wore the pants. very gentle child, very sweet child, very passive. And my heart broke when the grandfather, I really was heartbroken when the grandfather came to me and told me that his mother had abused him. About 7, 8 years ago, I saw this child, who is now a grown man, standing at the street, on the street, St. Charles streetcar line, waiting for the streetcar. I was so glad to see that he had matured into adulthood. He looked well. I wasn't driving, but I recognized him. But it was heartbreaking to know that this child had gone through such pain that was brought on by his mother, who was frustrated and couldn't understand that it wasn't this child's fault that he was born with 2 sex organs. So his name is now Claude. He's no longer Claudette. And it has affected me. It affected me to the point where when I finally reached an age,
Marion,
and now,
you went over your time.
oh, I went over my time. Okay.
Would you like
Just
to
to
get back
end it on a positive note, I'm glad that the little child grew up to be a man, and he seemed to be well and healthy.
Would you like to get back on the list, Marion?
I'll listen.
Okay. Thank you. Greer is next, and then we have Dee, Larry, and Phyllis.
Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to say this, and I've been saying this. Until African Americans get their full rights of citizenship, nothing changes for anybody else. We are the lowest hanging fruit in this society. Again, transgender are a subset of our society. So when you're talking about rights, they're encompassed in our basic human rights that we still don't have in this country. And they use Black numbers to promote the agenda to get transgender LGBTQIA rights. But at the same time, you left your Black brothers and sisters behind. You didn't reach back for their #1 basic rights that have not been met as Black citizens in this country. And that's what always happens when we join a fight with somebody else. When they get what they get, they leave us behind. We got to be Black first as African Americans in this country. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Greer. Next we have Dee, Larry, and Phyllis. Anybody else wanting to get on the list?
The 2 statistics that most shocked me that I found out was that more than 1.8 million LGBTQ youth between the age of 13 and 24 will consider suicide each year nationwide. At least 1 teen attempts to end their life every 45 seconds. The other one is that 41% of the 7,000 trans polled that they asked questions of had attempted suicide already. That's 2,870 perfect children that belong on this planet, and shouldn't be up in heaven yet. And that is scary to me. The suicide rate should not be where it is. One sentence that took me back that my daughter emailed to me is, she said, "I am blessed every single second of my life because I never suffered at the hands of my folks over tolerance or lack of empathy." And there's the key right there. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Next we have Larry, Phyllis, and Amal. Welcome, Amal, too, by the way. Larry, you're next.
You know, I've been coming to Erace long enough to know that there has been a multitude of topics where during the course of the discussion, almost everything is talked about but the topic. I've seen the conversation go into left field and right field. And so, you know, for Phyllis to say that the use of restrooms shouldn't enter into the conversation, that's not right. Everything enters into the conversation. But you know, if there are some lines of demarcation. One line might be defined as the word moral. Now, we all have our values and interpretations of what morality is. You know, if I were a heterosexual homemonger, to me, that would be immoral. I may tell somebody it's my body, I could do whatever I want. To me, that's immoral. And we sometimes are too critical of people who may take a stand contrary to our stand because they feel it violates their standards of what morality is. So we shouldn't call them homophobic as if they've got some kind of a fear. You know, I may be against the process of drug abuse. That doesn't make me have some kind of phobic against drug users. I have compassion towards them. And anybody that is a human being need to be extended love and compassion. So, you know, I question where is the white LGBTQ community when it comes to what Brittany Griner, you know, that Black woman in Russia. I don't see them making a whole lot of protests to get her home. So this thing still boils down to one thing, and that's Black.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to get back on?
No, I'm all right.
Cheryl? Okay, so next we have Phyllis, then Amal, B, and Cheryl. Phyllis?
So I was not trying to say that discussing bathrooms shouldn't come up in our conversation, but that's the big, it's in the culture that people bring up, you know, this, I don't want these men in the bathroom with my wife, whatever. I wonder, it always makes me laugh a little bit because there's nothing more private than a women's restroom. I mean, we don't have urinals that we stand in front of side by side like the men do. We have stalls. Everybody does their private thing in the stall. You don't see anybody else's anything. You know, you wash your hands, you put on your lipstick, whatever. And it's not a place where I've ever felt I was in danger of being assaulted by anybody. But I have two friends who each of them has a trans daughter in elementary school. And one of them recently had a meeting with the school because some of the other parents started raising the issue of her daughter using the girls' room. And the decision, which I'm happy, was made by the school that they would not single out her daughter to have to use a separate bathroom all by herself, but that any parent who was concerned about their child using the girls' room with her would be using that separate bathroom. And that is a way to prevent the child being singled out, bullied, eventually, as Dee Dee quoted, having suicidal ideations or suicidal attempts. And, you know, I struggle sometimes with getting the right pronouns, but I try really hard with little ones because they're in formation. Both of these children knew from a very young age before they could articulate it. And when they could, they said, I couldn't tell you before because I didn't have the language. So that's it. I'll probably get back on later.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Amal, then B, and Cheryl, and after that, the list is open.
Oh, wow. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Interesting topic. The first paragraph in this article it struck me. I mean, like really struck me. It says throughout history, transgender people of color have had a place of honor in many indigenous cultures around the world. What indigenous cultures are they talking about? Now, I'm an African, and I've studied African people's history and culture, both ancient, modern, and everything in between. And at no point in the history of my people, either on the continent of Africa or outside thereof, have I ever studied or heard of transgender people or that lifestyle being a place of honor in African culture. Now, I like to think that I'm a world historian as well, and I've not seen it in Native American culture. I've not seen it in ancient China. I mean, wherever you want to go around the world, where this place has been, and when I say around the world, I want to be clear, I'm outside of Europe. I've never seen any indigenous people in culture celebrate this lifestyle as a with high esteem or as a place of honor. Doesn't mean that they weren't people who tried to practice it. It just means that it wasn't a place of honor and it wasn't celebrated as part of the norm, because the article presents it like once we had European contact, that's when, you know, this was looked down upon. So no, I'm an African, and at no point in time in the history of my people on this planet has this type of lifestyle had a place of honor. Men are men, women are women, ain't no in-betweens, ain't no binaries and gender, transgender, and that stuff don't exist in the history and the culture of my people.
I think it might have been the timer. Was that Phyllis?
It did go off.
It
Yeah.
was. Amal, would you
I'm
like-
sorry. Okay, no, I'm
It's
finished.
okay. Would you like to get back on the list?
Oh, not right now.
Okay. Next we have B, then Cheryl and Phyllis, and after that, the list is open.
I have heard about indigenous cultures where being non-binary was a position of being able to be far-seeing, being heralded as a very special person because you were not one gender. So I have heard of that, and I have heard Native people talk about that. But what my main point, though, has to do with compassion and concern for people who experience what must be very, very painful and difficult to know that the person that you feel that you are, the pull that you have in terms of attractions is inconsistent with how you look and how people think of you. And for you to be forced to spend your life not living that truth, it's too hard. I have too much compassion for people to spend their entire lives struggling with something that doesn't have to be. And it pains me to think that there are people who feel they must wear that mask and continue to wear the mask. And the kinds of laws, the kinds of discrimination, and especially I've read so much and seen so much about transgender African-American females who are so brutalized. And in the article, even the police, a lot I think has to do with our being at home with our own sexuality and who I am and what my needs are, and being at home with that, at peace with that. And whatever anybody else is does not threaten who I know I am. And so I just, the only thing I'm expressing is a deep feeling of compassion and pain for people who suffer and struggle, especially children who, many of the homeless children, Covenant House, which I'll just save it till the end.
Okay, Amal has a clarifying question.
Oh yeah, baby. Hey, Amal.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was unmuting. So could you name these cultures, these indigenous cultures? Like,
No,
Like, because indigenous is a broad term.
yeah, I'm
I
talking.
want I want to break it down to some norms, like say, hey, this is Navajo culture, this is Cherokee culture, this is could you name the indigenous culture?
No, and my not being able to name them doesn't mean they don't exist. I really have heard conversations, maybe other people can help, but no, Amal, I cannot name them, but I do know I have heard discussions where the idea of binary of people being transgendered or being of not being binary is an important part, and they were felt as being very special. So I'm sorry I can't name them. Maybe somebody can help with that.
Thank you. Next we have Cheryl, and then after Cheryl is Phyllis, Greer, and Lynn. Anybody else? And I think maybe getting not too close to wrap up, but getting closer. Okay,
yeah,
so
maybe
next
it
is
maybe started at 11.
11, that's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you. And thanks for keeping time.
Sure.
Next is Cheryl.
I guess I just wanted to be part of the conversation. I have to come in where Larry comes in and say that, you know, no matter what, human beings need to receive respect, and being publicly beaten for being different is really, it's inhumane, and it shouldn't be done by anyone. I do find it interesting that in this subject, you know, it touches me because my experiences have to do with some of my gay male friends. And it does come up for me, and this is about racism, that they will always be white males. And so they get the privilege of being white and male. And I think that Larry has a point. I would like to see them, myself, much more interacting for the rights of all gay people, no matter what their background is, would be really great to see in this world. I'd love to see more action on that.
Thank you. Larry, see you. Okay, next we have Phyllis, then Greer, Lynn, Amal, and Larry. Phyllis?
So I wanted to start by saying that if one looks into current biology, you will see that biologists do affirm that there are more than just the male and female genders. I think we sometimes confuse genitalia with gender, and they are not the same. As Marion's story of the child who was born with two different sex organs revealed. So, you know, the stuff that we learned growing up is not necessarily the current understanding based on scientific research. I did a Google search just now, African transgender history, and lots of different articles came up. If anybody wants to do some research into that, and the term that's used, and it's mentioned in this article, I believe, across different Native American groups is two spirits, and that's the term they use for non-binary or transgender people. And I hate to break it to everybody, but Native people are humans and can have prejudices just like white people. And some of the prejudices that people of color have, I do believe what this article says came from the Christian colonizers. Christianity existed in Africa, but it is not the same as it has become here in the United States, especially with its ties to white supremacy. And I think, you know, again, the white Christo-fascists are what are going to bring this country down if we don't stop them. And they want to go after everybody. So I'll guess I'll save it for the wrap up. And Pedro is waving a finger.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pedro. You didn't do a very good job there. Okay, we've got Greer next, then Lynn, Amal, Larry, and Pedro. And I think probably by then we'll be ready to start the wrap up, I'm guessing.
I'm all frozen. I think he logged off and we'll see if
He
he comes
did,
back.
perhaps he's trying to come back on. Greer?
Okay. I want to piggyback on Reverend Larry about Brittany Griner. There have been so many outcries about different things happening in the LGBTQIA community when something happens. But again, I said this last week, I haven't heard that outcry for this woman. Basically, she's a prisoner of war. Did she do it? We'll never know, being that the situation is what it is. But I can see the reason why there's so much suicidal thought or suicidal attempts or suicidal completions in a Black community. Because even with this going on, if you're white and you fall under the LGBTQI community, if you're white, you still have white privilege. These Black individuals who are of that same community are already subjugated just based on their Blackness. So this is a subset of already being marginalized. And yes, I've heard Black friends who happen to be gay say, yeah, they honestly believe that the white portion of the LGBTQI community is racist. But at the same time, I asked them, well, why did y'all allow them to use your numbers to get what they wanted when you already knew you were going to be left behind? And at that point, they just fall silent. They don't say anything. So again, until the Black community is Black first on all aspects and agendas to help benefit and perpetuate our growth inside a society that obviously does not want us here, that's been marginalized us from day one, we have to be Black first. It's going to be on us to save us, because people who are waiting for help, either help don't come or it come too late. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. Next is Lynn.
I'm sorry that Amal is gone. I wanted him to click on those links on the map of the world, and there was a list of about 8 or 10 people in Africa who celebrated non-binary persons, and in fact sometimes designated them as the truth teller or the intermediary with religion in their society. And I'm going to mention something on a less serious note, perhaps, but it's still thought-provoking to me, and it's drag queen story time. Now, I know that drag queens are not necessarily trans people. They like women's clothing. I don't understand that. I like boys' clothing. But anyway, they're being invited to libraries. It started off in San Francisco, and now it's going all around the country. And we have drag queen story time in New Orleans. Well, this really upsets people in our country. Now, is it a good thing to have drag queen story time to teach children about drama and people being comfortable with who they are and to have fun? And it's not necessarily sexual because they're reading children's books that are appropriate for children? Or is it a bad thing because it's going to set off the haters and the right-wing people talking about a vast conspiracy among Democrats and left-wing people to groom their children? So I don't know the answer to that, but I think if I had a child, it would be fun to take him. I mean, I do have a child, but he's 49. If I had a young child, it would be fun to take him to drag queen story time. And maybe it is a way, representation. People have to see things before they start to understand them. And it's a way for non-conforming people to be seen in hopefully a non-threatening way.
Thank you, Lynn. Next would be Amal, but I don't see that he made it back, so we'll come back to him if he jumps back on. We have Larry and then Pedro. And since it's 11, Phyllis, I guess this would be a good time to have the last comment or be Pedro before the wrap up.
Let me say before I say my last comments that I've got a commitment. So when I get through, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I have to sign out. But this is nothing new in the world. I mean, this is going all the way back to Sodom and Gomorrah. And if it went back that far, it probably went back way before that recorded history. But in terms of, Cheryl, I think it was Cheryl mentioning me talking about rights, for gay people. That there are limitations on what we might call rights. There are limitations. I don't care who we are, heterosexual, homosexual. There are limitations, and but there's a difference in a person being treated as a human being. If I want to rent an apartment, get a job that I'm qualified for, treat me as a human being first. But naturally, there are going to be discriminations. I don't care who we go, where we go, who we are. But I think there are limits in trying to tie the transsexual issue into the historical fight for justice between traditional Black and white sides in America. And I think that's one way of trying to say, well, we're going to bring it in on the coattails of the civil rights struggle. And there are many who just resist that. Treat it for what it is. People who make that choice to be whatever they want to be within the boundaries of society, and their treatment as human beings should be extended as such. But I think there's two words, normal and natural. What is normal and what is natural? Normal might be, what everybody's doing it, so it must be all right. But is it natural? Natural is what threat, what effect would it have on the perpetuation of the human race?
I think that was the timer.
It was.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next we have Pedro, and then we'll do wrap ups. Pedro?
Yeah, I was been listening, and I think at the end of the day, morality cannot be divorced from humanity versus inhumanity. And it seems like it's pretty clear that oppression compromises humanity in a manner and to a degree that benefits a group or the oppressor at the direct inverse cost to the oppressed. And I think it's important that morality cannot be divorced from this alienation from our human potential. And so, when people judge other people for whatever reasons, it creates psychic pain, okay, for the person that is being judged. And they can deal with it in different ways, and they can let it roll off their sleeve or not. But at the end of the day, that psychic pain, I think, helps explain these higher suicide rates that are attached to people that are oppressed. Just real quickly, a couple of other things. I think the important point of racism, Dr. William Darity has done a lot of work around reparations, and people ask him, well, Dr. Darity, what about other oppressed groups? Why shouldn't they get reparations? And he goes, well, hell, they just need to, advocate for them. I'm advocating for the racism, the Black reparations that are due through the colonialization and the expropriation of Black people throughout our history and such. And so I do think that that's an important deal, that you can be loyal to racism first, and that there are all sorts of forms of layers of discrimination that are attached to oppression. But it is interesting that we don't want to dilute, one one for the other. Anyhow, that's all I got. Interesting discussion tonight.
Thank you. So starting the wrap up, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, the folks that I have who haven't spoken during the discussion are Marva, Jean, Stanton, and also Glenn, but I think I don't see Glenn on here anymore. So we can go ahead and start with Stanton for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I really don't have much to say. I was very curious to hear what everyone else had to say. I guess I'll say I'm not surprised as to what some people had to say. I do find a couple of things a little specious. This whole, what are white gay people doing for Brittany Griner's detention, a little ridiculous. I would just say, for that matter, what are heterosexual white people doing for Paul Whelan's detention? I mean, this is not necessarily a gay issue in regards to Brittany Griner. It's a political issue. I also think she's getting more attention than other detainees in Russia and around the world because she is famous. The fact that she's gay and Black, I think, are secondary to her fame. So that's why she's getting the attention she's getting. But all in all, I'm just going to say morality is a slippery slope. We don't all share each other's moralities based on our upbringings and our traditions. And I don't like the concept of there is quote unquote normal and natural, because what may be normal and natural to you is not normal and natural to me. So yeah, I'm going to just say sort of unsurprised by some of the conversation. That's it.
Thank you, Stanton. Next, Jean.
It was a very enlightening discussion. I really was taken with the very last paragraph of the article, which it ties in with Reverend Larry and other people who've said everyone is entitled, every individual person, human person, is entitled to respect. And I would add, they're entitled to love. And I think that at the very last article, it talked about what we can do. And the only one I really remember is voting. They didn't say it in those terms, but in Maryland, we've got a Republican, Cox, who, if he were to become the governor of Maryland, we would have a lot of problems here, not only with respect to whether we can teach the critical race theory in the schools, but also with respect to our LGBT community. And fortunately, I really am very optimistic that he won't win, but God, we've got to get out there. We've got to make sure that all our people are taken care of, are respected. We have, I will say, a white trans woman who is the head of a manufacturing company here in Maryland, in Silver Spring. And she and her wife, who she was married to when she was a man, and their children, they're all together. She started this company because their oldest daughter had an incurable disease. She's now, her company has produced vaccines or medicines that have helped a number of other children to grow. I also had a friend whose daughter now is a man, trans man, a Black trans man. And the last I heard, he was getting his PhD. I can't emphasize enough what Reverend Larry said and others, that everyone is entitled to be who they are and the respect as another human being.
Thank you, Jean.
Okay.
The last person for the 2-minute wrap up, Marva.
Thank you all for sharing your views. good article, good presentation, and managing the group discussion, Marla. I appreciate all you views, and it's given me much to think about. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Marva. I'm going to move on to the 1-minute wrap-ups. Leonetta?
Good article, and you've done a good job facilitating, Marva, and also wanted to let everybody know that this is a topic that I've had to advocate on in my Black social workers group because it's very divisive, and I'm on the side with Greer. This is a Black struggle. It's not about sex or that. This is and we should be in the fight for Black folks, and that's what one of the things that the organization is about. So good article, and thank you, and you did a good job.
Thank you. Greer?
Sorry about that. I had to find my mouse. I'm gonna say this. White trans still have white privilege, and all that goes along with that privilege in whiteness. While their Black counterparts don't have it, but yet they don't turn around and fight for those same people who's supposed to be their brothers and sisters. Not conjecture, not opinion, it's fact.
Okay, thank you, Greer. Cheryl?
Really not too much more to say. Everybody have a really great week.
Thank you. Dee?
I have to admit, this hour has gone by faster than pretty much any other meeting that I've ever been in with this group. Variety of opinions. And it's interesting because folks are willing to listen to others and kind of stick their toe in the water and see if they're going to get burned or not. And that is a good thing, because we do need to look at things in other folks' eyes, not just our own all the time. And this meeting helps out a lot with that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Pedro?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. Just I think the overarching issue is oppression, and I think what Gigi said is really important. That there are layers of discrimination, and only if I'm Black can I really suffer from all of the layers. Right, being Black, being gay, or transgender, or etc. So that's important. Also, I think it's so important that if you judge another person for their gender identity, or for their sexual orientation, or for their race, any of the above, then you are oppressing them. And I appreciate what Stanton said. The terms of natural is completely relative. In different cultures, what can be natural for some, may not be for the others. So there is no, you can't judge other people and then claim that you respect everybody. There's a contradiction there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Marion?
Marla, whose name did you say?
Marion? you?
Oh, okay. Oh, goodness.
I'm
gracious.
sometimes quiet, but not
Oh.
always.
I'd like to thank you for presenting this very provocative topic to us. We have a gay cousin in our family, and we love him to pieces. So that's a wrap there. But thank you so much for presenting this. We have to remember that people, no matter what their gender preference or reference or whatever you want to call it is, they're still a human being. I made up my mind a long time ago. I'm not condemning, I'm not judging, and you all are going to hear me say this again. It's not worth your time, your effort to physically harm someone. The man had the poor guy on the ground beating them to pieces. It's just ridiculous. You can't beat homosexuality or whatever you want to call it out of someone. And the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is treat human beings the way you wish to be treated. So once again, Marley, you did a good job. Thank you for presenting this topic. It needed to be discussed. And I think this improves our humanity, our humanness, whatever you want to call it. So thanks again.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say either, but I do want to say thank you once again for facilitating today, Marla. We really appreciate you joining our ranks here. So I hope that you'll consider doing it again. So, and hope everybody has a nice weekend. Thanks.
Thank you. Lynn?
Greer, I wanted to suggest that you see a movie called Boys Don't Cry it's a true story about a woman who was going under the name of Brandon Tina, and she was gang raped and beaten to death. She was a white.
I saw it.
Oh, you did see it. The community of people who are oppressed has no limits, and I know that it's hard to suffer constant prejudice as a Black person, but there's enough prejudice and misery to go around, and we have to reach out to everybody. That's my thought. Thank you for your topic, Marla, and thank you, Greer, for your comments also, and everyone else.
Thank you. B?
Yeah, good conversation, good discussion and article. Thanks, Marla, for a good job. With Gigi, I agree. It's true that for years, there have been, even to this day, there are issues with the LGBT community, Q community, and African-American people. And there was a lady interviewed sometime back. She said for the first year, this is the first year she's ever felt like she would be a part of the gay pride parade, because she never felt a part of the community. I recognize that, and it's true. But prejudice, discrimination, oppression, racism, white supremacy, all of that is destructive to the human spirit. And we have to take on the work of working on that, all of us, for all of us. Wherever there is, there always needs to be the energy to put down the oppression, and try to be careful. I think being careful not to judge people, but to support and care for and nurture and use our compassion to love one another in our work. Thanks, Marla. Good job.
Thank you. And then we have Phyllis, and I think that will be everybody.
First, I want to go back to, I'm sorry he's gone, but in case well, I have a Master of Divinity degree. I don't know how many people on here know that about me. And Larry and I are very different theologically. I'm sorry he's gone. Amal tried to get back in, but he didn't come. And so when he talked about Sodom, he's incorrect that the story of Sodom and Gomorrah has anything to do with what we understand as homosexuality or gay people. The quote from Ezekiel 16, verse 49 and 50. Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters, meaning the other cities, were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore, I did away with them, as you have seen. So I'm one of those people who's becoming very, sorry, I'm trying to get back to the timer. There it is. Just basically, I don't care what your religion teaches you, live it, but don't put it on other people. I don't care, don't quote the Bible, don't quote the Quran, don't quote anything, the Torah, the Talmud. Just live your own life as you morally see fit and don't try to impose it on others. And B, think you are a saint. And Marley did an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks to all. I think this is where I give my final thoughts. And I first just want to say thank you to everybody for being so gracious in my occasional stumbling. Hopefully it wasn't too much. Jean, it looks like she got up, but she mentioned the trans woman in her community who started the company. And that just so happens to be the company I work for remotely. And it is a phenomenal company. I was able to visit for the first time in person this week, actually, and see everything that goes on there firsthand. And yes, her mission was first to save her daughter from pulmonary hypertension, which is a deadly disease patient population that Phyllis and I have both worked with for quite some time. So, I mean, it's amazing what Martine has done with her company, and I feel very, very honored to work for such a phenomenal person and a phenomenal company as well. So that was my thought number one. My second thought, just directly related to the article itself, is I thought that something that's really important to think about in perhaps stopping or minimizing some of the violence that specifically occurs against Black trans women, which were the folks who were highlighted in the article, is the decriminalization of sex work, because many Black trans women happen to work as sex workers. And when they're abused or when violence happens to them, they are not in a position to report those acts to the police for a variety of reasons that are probably quite obvious, because they can get in trouble for what they're doing for work. And then they can subsequently be jailed, and then they're going to be further, abused and violated in a prison system, and then come out of the prison system to try to find work. And how does that even look, trying to find work as a Black trans person? So I would submit decriminalizing sex work would not only make life hopefully better for Black trans folks, but all women, men, etc., in these communities. I also wanted to point out that I think there need to be more actionable things done for bringing Black trans people into bigger movements like Black Lives Matter, and highlighting the leadership in those communities and making people Black trans folks leaders within those movements as well. Just continuing to uplift the voices of this community, I think, are paramount. I mean, truly, I think an overlooked and forgotten group of folks who contribute so much via art, music. And my final thought is just the people in this community that I have gotten to know by way of mutual aid specifically, I think are, along with just Black folks in general, a phenomenal example of what community really is. And that we as white people, we white folks, here and elsewhere need to take heed of how Black people build community, because we as white people, I do not think, do nearly the beautiful job that Black people do when it comes to caring for each other, caring for others, even who aren't Black, but specifically caring for each other within their community. And, you know, forced to do it, I think, in many ways because of violence and oppression, but also purely for the joy. And we need to listen to that and follow that lead as white folks. So that's all that I have essentially. Thank you all again. I'll do this again. Y'all were really nice. So
Amal is back on if you want to have him do his wrap up.
oh yes, sorry, I didn't see. Okay, yes.
Just came.
Amal, please go ahead. Amal, can you hear us okay? You might be trying to unmute, I bet.
Well,
No, I don't
the
see.
recording. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see his name too. Like,
Oh, okay. I
you know,
see you.